Good morning, friends. Welcome to Sutta Study with Bhante Suddhaso. Today we will be studying the second part of the Anaṅgana Sutta, and you can find the link in the live chat. And welcome to Grant, Jens, Michael, Jessica, Marielle, Galaxy, and Marielle, who loves that picture of the cat. I think that's Stan. All right. Yes, our lovely volunteers have picked that picture. Okay. And welcome, of course, to Bhante Suddhaso. Thank you for teaching us today. So I'll pass it on to Bhante.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So picking up where we left off yesterday with the Anaṅgana Sutta, so Majjhima Nikaya number 5. So we'll continue where we had left off. So the sutta continues. Venerable, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May the teacher teach Dhamma to the monks after asking me a series of questions. May he not teach Dhamma to the monks after asking another monk a series of questions. However, Venerable, it is possible that the teacher will teach Dhamma to the monks after asking another monk a series of questions, and not after asking that monk a series of questions. Thinking, the teacher teaches Dhamma to the monks after asking another monk a series of questions, and not after asking me a series of questions, he is disturbed and displeased. Venerable, that disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. So there's a number of suttas where the Buddha uses a question and answer format for part of his teaching style. So where he would pick one of the people who was present and he would ask them a series of questions. And then based on how that person replied, then that would shape the direction that the Buddha took the discourse. So this was a way of communicating with people in a way that can be very effective. So actually a lot of teachers these days use similar approaches. And here at Empty Cloud Monastery, so since the very beginning of when we started offering Dharma teachings, we've almost always incorporated a Q&A period, because this is a very effective way of making sure that the teachings are relevant and pertinent and useful to people. And also a way of making sure that people are paying attention and engaged with the material being presented. But this particular case that's being brought up, where the Buddha would pick a particular person, so wanting to be the person the Buddha picks is a form of self-centeredness. Like, well, I want to be the special one. I want to be the head student. I want to be the top of the class. I want to be the one who knows all the answers. So it's related to the desire for recognition. The desire for fame. It's related to the desire for a good reputation. So realistically, one should not be wishing, may I be the one who gets to answer a series of questions, not wishing, may I be the one who gets singled out for extra attention, but rather wishing, may the teacher present the Dhamma in a way which will be of most benefit to everyone involved. That should be the proper attitude of mind. So not seeking to be the top of the class, not seeking to be the one who gets the most attention or recognition. So being perfectly fine with just being another anonymous person in the crowd. Again, if one is getting upset because one is not getting extra attention, or one is not being singled out for recognition, then that's a manifestation of one's defilements, a manifestation of one's arrogance, one's self-centeredness, one's conceit. Then the next one says, Venerable, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May the monks enter the village for a meal after placing me at the front, not after placing another monk at the front. However, Venerable, it is possible that the monks will enter the village for a meal after placing another monk at the front, not after placing that monk at the front. Thinking, the monks enter the village for a meal after placing another monk at the front, not after placing me at the front, he is disturbed and displeased. Venerable, that disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. So again, this is pointing to that tendency of arrogance, of conceit, of self-centeredness, of wanting to be the one who gets the most recognition. So wanting the honor and prestige of being the person who walks at the front of the line. Of course, in Buddhism, we're not trying to be the person who gets the most recognition. Fame, honor, renown, these are not considered to be good things. They're not desirable things. They're things which might happen incidentally in the course of our practice, but they're not things that are worth seeking out. And there's also another interesting thing here, which is to note that these days, in Buddhist monastic culture, commonly the most senior monk is the one who goes at the front of the line when entering the village for alms round or for a meal. But this indicates that that was not necessarily the custom at the time of the Buddha. That at the time of the Buddha, it wasn't necessarily the most senior monk who would go at the front of the line. So there's a number of little clues here and there throughout the suttas and the Vinaya, which indicate that seniority was held a bit more loosely, a bit more lightly in the time of the Buddha than it usually is these days. So of course, seniority is still important to a certain extent, but it's not the most important thing. But again, here the point is it doesn't matter whether you're at the front of the line or the middle of the line or the back of the line. It doesn't matter whether you get the most recognition or the least recognition, because we're not practicing Buddhism for the sake of recognition. We're not practicing Buddhism for the sake of a good reputation. We're practicing for the sake of the elimination of our defilements and delusions. We're practicing for the sake of enlightenment, for awakening, for liberation. Then the next one, so this one says, Venerable, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May I get the best meal, the best seat, the best water, the best alms food. May another monk not get the best meal, the best seat, the best water, the best alms food. However, Venerable, it is possible that another monk will get the best meal, the best seat, the best water, the best alms food, and that monk will not get the best meal, seat, water, or alms food. Thinking, another monk gets the best meal, seat, water, or alms food, and I do not get the best meal, seat, water, or alms food, he is disturbed and displeased. Venerable, that disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. So this is the case of wanting to get nice stuff, wanting to get the best of what's offered, the best of what's available, and in particular, wanting it to be me and not somebody else. So there's also not just the element of greed here, not just the element of desire for nice stuff, but there's a little extra jab there of, well, may it be me and not somebody else. It'd just be terrible if somebody else got the best stuff. It should be me that gets the best stuff. So again, noticing that tendency of mind, to want the best for ourselves, even at the expense of others. And not wanting somebody else to get nice things if it means that we're not getting as good stuff as they're getting. And here it's also useful to bring to mind the simile of the dung heap, which is a polite way of saying a gigantic pile of feces. So there's a sutta about the feces-eating beetle, which accumulates a big pile of feces, and it stuffs itself full of feces, and it sits up proudly on top of its giant pile of feces, and it says, Look at me. I am the best. I've got a gigantic pile of feces and I've stuffed myself full of feces. I am clearly the most amazing beetle in the world. So that's what it's like. The Buddha said that's what it's like when we get all obsessed with things like food and water and clothing and so on. We're just obsessed with feces. And we're all proud of ourselves for getting the best feces and the biggest pile of feces. Like, well, let's not get so obsessed with feces. It's really not the point. The point is to attain enlightenment. That's what's actually valuable. It's cultivating wisdom, cultivating humility, cultivating compassion, cultivating self-restraint. This is what's really important. Not about getting the best food and the best seat and the best water. Who cares? Then the next one says, Venerable, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May I give the blessing after the meal in the refectory? May another monk not give the blessing after the meal in the refectory? However, Venerable, it is possible that another monk will give the blessing after the meal in the refectory, and that monk will not give the blessing after the meal in the refectory. Thinking, another monk gives the blessing after the meal in the refectory, and I do not give the blessing after the meal in the refectory, he is disturbed and displeased. Venerable, that disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. So there's a common custom that when people bring food to offer to the monastics, to share with the monastery residents, that the monastics will chant a blessing. Usually a few short verses from the suttas, which are wishing well for the donor, wishing for the donor to be happy and healthy and so on. And again, these days, commonly the person who leads the chanting is the most senior monastic present. And again, this doesn't appear to have necessarily been the way things were done in the time of the Buddha. It wasn't necessarily the most senior monk. So possibly they took turns, or possibly they were appointed one way or another. It isn't clear. But then again, there can be the sense of specialness, like, oh, I am the one who chants the blessing. Doesn't that make me so special? But actually, it doesn't. No, it doesn't make you special at all. It's not significant. So this fits into this whole category. This whole section is all about wanting to be the one who gets the most recognition. Again, there's several categories here which have to do with wanting to be special and wanting to be seen as special by other people, wanting to be known as exceptional, above the crowd, better than the others. So it's all related to this conceit, this self-centeredness of me, and wanting others to think of me as somebody special and remarkable and notable and exceptional. That said, it's also important to point out through all of this that we do need to be careful to be fair. So if we are the person who's in the role of distributing food or deciding whose turn it is to go first or lead the chanting or whatever, it's important to be fair, not to discriminate about who gets what and who gets which turn to do which thing. So trying to be reasonable in how these opportunities are distributed. If there actually is an unfairness or injustice going on, where certain people are being prevented from having an equal access to the supplies that are available, or certain people are being deliberately held back, deliberately denied respect and recognition and so on, then we should do what we can to help that situation. We should do what we can to try to bring fairness to that situation, and not use these elements of the suttas as weapons to silence people. Because I've also seen that happen, where someone is like, well, actually one thing it comes up with is gender. So it's an issue which has sometimes come up in dual gender monasteries, where the female monastics were not being recognized, or were not being given the opportunity to offer the blessing, or they weren't being given the opportunity to share Dhamma talks, or they weren't being given access to the higher quality offerings that were being made. And then when this was pointed out, they were told to be silent and just to accept it, because they shouldn't be wanting the nicer things. It's not appropriate for a monastic to want nice things. So that's an example of using a sutta like this as a weapon to try to silence people when they speak up about unfairness. So that's not the point here at all. So the point here is not to use this as weapons for silencing other people, but rather to use it as self-reflections for seeing how we get caught up on our own arrogance and conceit and self-centeredness and sense of superiority and craving and so on, and to try to diminish our own defilements and let go of our own internal flaws. So continuing, we have some more. It says, Venerables, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May I teach Dhamma to monks who come to the monastery? May another monk not teach Dhamma to monks who come to the monastery? However, Venerable, it is possible that another monk will teach Dhamma to monks who come to the monastery, and that monk will not teach Dhamma to monks who come to the monastery. Thinking, another monk teaches Dhamma to monks who come to the monastery, and I do not teach Dhamma to monks who come to the monastery, he is disturbed and displeased. Venerable, that disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. And the next paragraph is also including so female monastics, bhikkhunis, laymen, and laywomen. So the four assemblies, it's sometimes called, the four aspects of the Buddha's assembly. So male monastics, female monastics, and then female and male lay followers. So here again, it's about wanting to be the special one, wanting to be the one who is the teacher, wanting to be the one who gives the talks, wanting to be the one who is known as the instructor, wanting to be known as the one who understands the Dhamma. So it's missing the point. It's like, why do we give Dhamma talks? It's not for the sake of recognition. It's not for the sake of honor. It's not for the sake of fame. It's not for the sake of gain. It's not for the sake of a paycheck. I mean, I don't get a paycheck for one thing. But rather, we teach Dhamma in order to help people understand the Dhamma. That should be the sole and only reason. We teach Dhamma in order to help people understand the Buddha's teachings and make progress towards awakening. So it's not about trying to get respect or honor or recognition or fame or acquisitions or anything like that. It's purely about helping people on the path to awakening. So we really need to check our motivations. If we want to give a Dhamma talk, we really need to ask ourselves, why? Is it really because we believe that we're able to help other people make progress on the path? Or is it just because we want to get recognition? Or maybe it's because we see that other teachers make lots of money from teaching Dhamma, and we want a share of that as well. Or maybe it's, again, looking at our motives. Why? Why do we want to be the one who teaches, the one who shares Dhamma, the one who gives talks, the one who shares information? Why do we think that should be us and not somebody else? And maybe there's a good reason for that. Maybe we think we're really well suited for it. But maybe there's not such a good reason. Maybe it really is just our desire or our conceit. So we need to be willing to look at our own mind and see what's going on there. The next one, similarly in the same category. So this one says, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May the other monks esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate me. May the other monks not esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate another monk. However, Venerable, it is possible that the other monks will esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate another monk, and will not esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate that monk, especially if that monk is constantly trying to get attention and make other people like him. Then, again, that might not inspire respect from one's companions. So thinking the other monks esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate another monk, and do not esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate me, he is disturbed and displeased. That disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. And then the same thing once again applies to bhikkhunis, to laywomen and laymen. So this is a quite straightforward example of wanting to be the one who gets the most respect, wanting to be the one who people honor and revere and venerate, which is missing the point. That's not why we're here. That's not why we're practicing the path. We're not practicing the path in order to get respect. That might happen as a side effect, but it's not the purpose. The purpose of practicing is to attain awakening. And we should always be encouraging people to honor and respect the Dhamma itself, to honor and respect the Sangha as a whole, but not to get caught up on individual people, because individual people are just individual people. We have our flaws and our failings. We're not perfect, most of us. So it's not actually the greatest thing to get all caught up in venerating a single particular monk. In fact, there's a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya where the Buddha directly says that we should not place our faith in any one monk or any one person, because that person then might go on to do something inappropriate. They might do something improper. They might do something, even something extremely bad. So if our faith is dependent upon a particular person's conduct, then our faith is shaky, it's unstable, can be easily broken. So then, again, getting back to craving and desire for gigantic piles of feces, the next four say, Venerables, it is possible that a wish like this might arise in some monk. May I get exquisite robes, exquisite alms food, exquisite dwellings, exquisite medicinal supplies. And may another monk not get exquisite robes, food, dwellings, and medicines. However, it is possible that another monk will get exquisite robes, food, dwellings, and medicines, and that monk will not get exquisite robes, food, dwellings, and medicines. Thinking another monk gets exquisite robes, etc., and I do not get exquisite robes, etc., he is disturbed and displeased. Venerable, that disturbance and that displeasure are both flaws. So again, a straightforward example of wanting nice stuff and not wanting other people to have nice stuff. And I think it's worth, again, emphasizing that thing of not just craving it for yourself, but also wanting it to not be other people that gets nice things. So there's a certain element of hostility wrapped up in this mind state. And then when other people get the nice things, then we fall into envy and jealousy. It can fall into even outright hatred. So instead, we should be practicing mudita, sympathetic joy, joy at the good fortune of others, joy at the happiness and blessings that people experience. So then Sariputta continues. He says, Venerable, flaws the designation which refers to these harmful, unwholesome domains of desire. So summarizing everything, all the examples he just gave. Then he says, Venerable, if it is seen and heard that any of these harmful, unwholesome domains of desire have not been abandoned by a monk, then even if he is a forest dweller, one who sits and sleeps in seclusion, one who goes for alms, one who goes to each dwelling during alms round, one who uses discarded items, and one who wears coarse robes, his companions in the holy life will not esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate him. For what reason? Because it is seen and heard that these harmful, unwholesome domains of desire have not been abandoned by that monk. Venerable, it is just like when a bronze dish has been brought from a market or a metalsmith, which is pure and clean. Its owner arranges the corpse of a snake, dog, or human on it, covers it with another bronze dish, and enters the marketplace. After seeing this, someone might say, Sir, what is being carried about as though it were the best of the best? After lifting it up and opening it, they would look. With the sight of it, displeasure would set in, revulsion would set in, disgust would set in. Even those who were hungry would have no desire to eat, let alone those who are satiated. In the same way, Venerable, if it is seen and heard that any of these harmful, unwholesome domains of desire have not been abandoned, etc. So what the Venerable Sariputta is pointing to here is, so you have the case of a monk who, from the outside, their conduct looks great. They look very ascetic and austere, very diligent. It looks like they're living a very simple, renunciant life. But inside, their mind is filled with all this desire, all this envy, all this self-centeredness, all this conceit. Again, it's as if somebody brings in this fabulous looking platter, and you're like, oh, there must be something delicious in that platter. Then you open the cover and it's a dead snake. Well, some people like to eat snakes, I guess, or like a rotting carcass of a dog. I guess people like to eat dogs too. So rotting carcass of a human. Hopefully you don't like to eat humans. And then you're like, oh God, disgusting. So that's what it's like. You see a monk who on the outside, their conduct and their deportment looks so perfect. They move so gracefully with so much mindfulness and precision, and they seem so austere and holy. And then you find out that their mind is all filled with greed, hatred, arrogance, conceit, and you're like, oh disgusting. And your respect for that person dissipates. So unfortunately, I have met a few people like this, who from the outside, they look great. Their conduct is all like perfectly polished and everything is fine. But then the more you get to know them, the more you realize that that's just a shell covering up a gigantic bundle of unexamined defilements. And of course, that's to be expected to some extent as we make progress along the path. But the important thing is if we have the willingness to recognize our flaws and to work on overcoming them. So of course, it's not expecting us to be flawless right from the start, but we need to have the willingness to examine our flaws and try to work through them, try to let go of them. Then the next paragraph, Venerable Sariputta says, Venerable, if it is seen and heard that these harmful, unwholesome domains of desire have been abandoned by a monk, then even if he is a village dweller, one who accepts meal invitations, one who wears robes given by householders, his companions in the holy life will esteem, revere, honor, respect, and venerate him. For what reason? Because it is seen and heard that these harmful, unwholesome domains of desire have been abandoned by that monk. Venerable, it is just like when a bronze dish has been brought from a market or a metalsmith, which is pure and clean. Its owner arranges high-quality rice with many curries and sauces on it, covers it with another bronze dish, and enters the marketplace. After seeing this, someone might say, Sir, what is being carried about, as though it were the best of the best? After lifting it and opening it, they would look. With the sight of it, pleasure would set in, non-revulsion would set in, non-disgust would set in. Even those who are satiated would have a desire to eat, let alone those who are hungry. In the same way, etc. So this is the case of a monk who, from the outside, it doesn't look like they're particularly ascetic or austere. So this is somebody who lives in the village, so they're not living out in the forest where life is quite rough and it's uncomfortable and it's hard to get by. But they're living in the village where it's much easier to get nice things and be well supported. They accept meal invitations, so rather than going for alms round, instead people will cook for them, especially for them. So, and usually when people cook for monks, they usually make really nice food. Not always, but usually. And they wear robes given by householders. So again, the implication here is that they're wearing really nice, comfortable robes. So this is someone who, it doesn't actually look like they're particularly austere or ascetic from the outside, but on the inside, their mind is very pure and clean because they've made a conscious effort to abandon all these forms of desire, greed, and conceit. So then that's the case where when you examine the person, you're like, okay, maybe they're not super austere, maybe they're not super ascetic, but then Buddhism is not about being super ascetic. It's about letting go of desire, aversion, and delusion. It's about letting go of conceit. And this person's doing a pretty good job. Great. So then joy arises when you recognize the good qualities of a monastic who is cultivating their mind in accordance with Dhamma. And then Venerable Mahamoggallana jumps in. So when this was said, Venerable Mahamoggallana said to Venerable Sariputta, Venerable, a simile occurs to me. Sariputta replies, then let it occur, Venerable Moggallana. Venerable, on one occasion I was dwelling at Rajagaha at Garibaja. Then, Venerable, after dressing in the morning and taking my bowl and robe, I entered Rajagaha for alms. Now on that occasion, Samiti, the cartwright's son, was carving a wheel for a chariot. The Ajivaka Pandaputta, who was formerly a cartwright, was present as well. Then, Venerable, this line of thought arose in the mind of the Ajivaka Pandaputta. Oh, may Samiti, the cartwright's son, carve away the crookedness, deformity, and flaws of this wheel, such that it may be free of crookedness, free of deformity, free of flaws, pure, established in its ideal state. While this line of thought was present in the Ajivaka Pandaputta's mind, Samiti, the cartwright's son, carved away the crookedness, deformity, and flaws of that wheel. Then, Venerable, the Ajivaka Pandaputta was satisfied and uttered this statement of satisfaction. Having known my mind from heart to heart, it seems he carves. So apparently Pandaputta had the mistaken assumption that the cartwright was reading his mind and obeying his telepathic wishes, when realistically the cartwright was just doing his job, which is carving wheels for carts. But then Moggallana says, in the same way, Venerable, those people who lack faith, who have gone forth from the household life into homelessness for the sake of a livelihood and not from a basis of faith. So this is people who become monks just because it's a way to live a decent life where you're sure to get fed, well, reasonably sure to get fed and clothed and so on, rather than people who become monastics for the sake of enlightenment. He continues, and are fraudulent, deceitful, treacherous, restless, arrogant, fickle, prone to harsh speech, prone to scattered speech, unguarded in their sense faculties, immoderate in eating, not devoted to wakefulness, uninterested in the qualities of a contemplative, lacking a strong reverence for the training, given to luxury, lax, forerunners in backsliding. These days I translate that champions of backsliding. Not committed to seclusion, lazy, of inferior energy, with mindfulness forgotten, lacking clear comprehension, unconcentrated, with wandering minds, unwise and stupid. For them, it seems that Venerable Sariputta carves them using this Dhamma discourse, having known their minds from heart to heart. So the implication here is that the teaching that Sariputta is giving is carving away all of the flaws and errors in the minds of the people who are listening. Just as the cartwright is carving away all the flaws in the wheel so that it's perfectly round and smooth. And then Moggallana gives the opposite side. He says, but those clansmen who have gone forth from the household life, so just for the record, clansmen, I don't translate it that way these days. The Pali word is kulaputta, which means more like son of a good family. So somebody born into a decent family, somebody who is a polite member of society. It's like a gentleman, a gentlewoman, someone who is respectable. That's the meaning here. So we've gone into the household life, gone from the household life into homelessness from a basis of faith, and are not fraudulent, not deceitful, not treacherous, not restless, not arrogant, not fickle, not prone to harsh speech, not prone to scattered speech, guarded in their sense faculties, moderate in eating, devoted to wakefulness, interested in the qualities of a contemplative, with a strong reverence for the training, not given to luxury, not lax, not committed to backsliding, forerunners in seclusion, with energy aroused, self-directed, with mindfulness established, with clear comprehension, concentrated, with one pointed mind, wise and not stupid. These days I'm translating that word as obtuse rather than stupid. Because it's not about intellect, it's more about being obtuse, like being willfully negligent and ignorant, not paying attention, not being willing to get the point. That's more what it's about. It's not necessarily about having a low IQ. Anyway, so for these good people, it says, for them, after hearing this Dhamma discourse from Venerable Sariputta, it seems they eat and drink it with speech and mind, thinking, it is indeed an excellent thing to lift one's co-practitioners out of what is unwholesome and establish them in what is wholesome. Venerables, just as a woman or a man who is young, youthful, and fond of adornments, who has washed their head and obtained a garland of lotus, jasmine, or rose blossoms, would take it with both hands and place it on the crown of their head. In the same way, venerables, those clansmen who have gone forth from the household life into homelessness from a basis of faith, etc. After hearing this Dhamma discourse from Venerable Sariputta, it seems they eat and drink it with speech and mind, thinking, it is indeed an excellent thing to lift one's co-practitioners out of what is unwholesome and establish them in what is wholesome. Thus, both of these great beings appreciated each other's well-spoken statements. Again, this emphasis here of delighting in the opportunity to help each other along the path. And also this thing of loving the Dhamma so much that when you hear it, you just want to eat and drink it. Like you want to just devour the Dhamma because it's so nourishing, so delicious, so delightful. So that's the end of this sutta. At this time, if there's any questions or comments, then we can have some discussion about the sutta. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And there's no questions at the moment, but they might appear. In the meanwhile, hello to a few friends who have checked in the meanwhile. Hi, Jenny, Ella, Laura, Liz, and Tran. And Jens asks, Bhante, how should we reflect on our actions but not be self-critical? How do we maintain this needed reflection of our actions, review our actions if they're wholesome/unwholesome?
Well, it's very important to keep the reflection on anatta, of not self. So as I mentioned, I think yesterday, when you reflect on the unwholesome qualities present in your mind, then don't think that is me, that is mine, that is who I am, that defines me, that controls me, that is my nature. Because those are all wrong statements. Those are all incorrect. Rather, you just recognize, oh, there's some dirt in my mind that needs to be cleaned out. Again, it's just like when you walk in your room, if there's some dirt on the floor, then you think, oh, I should clean up that dirt. But you don't think, I am dirty, I am flawed, there's something wrong with me, my nature is to be flawed. You just recognize there's some dirt on the floor and it's time to clean up the dirt. So it's the same. When we look in the mind, if we see some unwholesome things, then we think, well, it's time to clean up the dirt. It's time to clean up this mess. It's time to take out the trash. It's time to get the harmful things out of my mind. Or it's like when you're preparing food. If you're, for example, if you're washing vegetables or beans and you find a stone, you don't think, oh, the vegetables and beans are inherently flawed. There's something terribly wrong with the vegetables and beans. You just take out the stone because you know that the stone would be harmful if you left it in. So it's the same when we look at our mind. When we see harmful things in the mind, we don't think, I am a flawed, inherently damaged individual. We just think there's something harmful in the mind and it's time to remove it before it causes any more damage. So there's only a problem if you think that the defilements are you. But if you recognize that the defilements are not you, they're just some harmful things that appeared in the mind, then there's no problem with removing them. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, pretty straightforward sutta. So again, there doesn't necessarily need to be a lot of discussion. The Buddha's words are often quite clear. In this case, it's Venerable Sariputta, but still quite clear. So if that's it for today, then that can be it for now. And this evening we have monk chat. So please bring all of your off-topic questions, everything you've ever wondered about Buddhism, you can bring this evening, and we'll talk about it.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a great.
Like the monks wear underwear.